Welcome to our deep dive into the 2025 job market. You've given us a really interesting mix of sources for this one. News articles, economic reports, even some like firsthand accounts from people out there in the trenches. And um,
Yeah, a lot to unpack.
yeah, so our mission today is to kind of help you decode what's really going on out there and give you the insights you need, whether you're, actively searching for a new job or just curious about the future of work.
And to kick things off, I think we should probably address the elephant in the room, or rather, the discouraged elephant. Did you know that 26% of people are so overwhelmed by the job market right now that they're not even going to try finding work this year?
Wow. Okay, that's a pretty stark statistic. So let's break down why that is. Why is this happening and what it means for all of us?
Well, after that frenzy of the Great Resignation, remember all that talk about employees holding all the cards, we're seeing a very definite shift. I think a lot of economists are actually calling this period the Great Stay.
Interesting. So what changed? Is it just, economic uncertainty making companies more hesitant to hire?
That's definitely a factor. I mean, inflation worries, potential slowdowns always make companies a bit more cautious. But I think there's another massive force at play here that's totally reshaping the landscape, the rise of AI.
Right. And all of the sources that you gave us seem to be pointing to this growing gap between the skills that people have and the skills that employers suddenly need.
It's what the World Economic Forum is calling a skills mismatch. And their Future of Jobs report is predicting that a staggering 39% of core job skills are going to change by 2030.
Wow. So almost half of all job skills are going to become obsolete in less than a decade.
It's a pretty dramatic shift. Imagine you're a software developer who spent years, maybe decades, mastering a specific coding language, and suddenly AI tools can do like 80% of their job in a fraction of the time.
Yeah, that's a pretty sobering example. So even if someone isn't, actively looking for a new job right now, they should still be paying attention to these trends.
Absolutely. The need to upskill and adapt has never been greater.
Okay, so let's get down to brass tacks here. What does this all mean for someone who's actually out there searching for a job right now? We read about Jody R., who sent out over 500 applications, and she faced this wall of ghosting and lowball offers and just this like overall demoralization.
Sadly, Jody's story is becoming more and more common. Hiring rates are down, competition is fierce, the time it takes to find a job is going up. But I think it's not even just about finding any job anymore. It's about understanding what the market needs and really positioning yourself accordingly.
Yeah, it feels like a perfect storm almost. But what about, those who are currently employed? Are they immune to these challenges?
Not necessarily. The sources actually highlight a pretty concerning trend. Even people who have jobs are reporting higher levels of burnout and this desire for more work-life balance. They're starting to ask themselves, is this really all there is?
It's almost like the pandemic was this wake-up call for a lot of people. They're reassessing their priorities, what they actually want from their careers. But that just adds another layer of complexity to this already turbulent job market.
Exactly. It's not just about finding a job anymore. It's about finding the right job. One that aligns with your values and your goals.
Right. And speaking of complexity, the stories of Emma and Kylan really stood out to me. They represent two groups that are facing particularly tough challenges right now, recent graduates and career switchers. So Emma just graduated with a stellar resume from the University of Tennessee, but she's starting to realize that maybe her college experience doesn't translate directly into a job in this market.
And then you have Kylan, who graduated from Tallinn University in Estonia. He's back in the U.S. now, and facing a whole different set of expectations and norms in the American job market.
So they're both sending out applications, but are they even reaching real people? This whole like ghost jobs phenomenon is pretty
Wow.
unsettling.
Yeah, and way more common than you might think. Ghost jobs refer to job postings that aren't actually real, often used by companies to gather market data or create the illusion of a hiring process.
So how can job seekers avoid falling for these fake opportunities? What are some red flags?
That's a great question, and one we'll definitely address. But before we get into the specifics of spotting a ghost job, I think it's important to understand the broader forces that are shaping this job market in the first place.
Okay, so let's unpack the tech side of this equation. AI is obviously changing everything, but how exactly is it impacting the job search itself?
That's where things get really interesting and potentially frustrating.
All right, man, let's dive in. Okay, so we're talking about AI and how it's changing the rules of the game. Several of the experts you gave us mentioned this like precision paradox created by these AI screening tools.
Yeah, it is fascinating, isn't it? On the surface, these tools seem like a win-win,
Yeah.
right? Employers can quickly sort through tons of applications, and job seekers don't have to wait weeks to hear back. But as Michael Ryan pointed out, there's a catch.
I have a feeling it's not all sunshine and roses. What's the downside?
Well, these AI tools often rely on very specific keywords and algorithms to filter applications. So if your resume doesn't include the exact phrase the AI is looking for, you might get rejected even if you're perfectly qualified for the job.
Ugh, that sounds incredibly frustrating. Imagine spending hours crafting the perfect resume only to be disqualified by a robot because you used managed instead of led.
Exactly. And it's not just about individual words either. These algorithms are looking for patterns and connections, trying to predict who's the best fit based on a mountain of data.
So, how do we as humans even play this game? Do we need to start optimizing our resumes for robots?
Well, it's not quite about becoming robots ourselves, but Catherine Fisher, a career expert at LinkedIn, had some great advice on how to approach this new reality.
Okay, I'm all ears. Give us the insider tips.
She emphasizes moving away from the old spray and pray method of sending out hundreds of generic applications. It's all about quality over quantity now.
Which makes sense when you think about it. I remember back in the day, people used to brag about how many resumes they send out. It was like a badge of honor.
Right, but the game has changed. Catherine's data shows that the average number of applicants per job opening has skyrocketed to 250, up from 150 just a couple of years ago.
Wow, so you're now competing with twice as many people for the same position. No wonder generic resumes just don't cut it anymore.
Exactly, instead of mass applying. Catherine recommends spending time researching each company and tailoring your resume and cover letter to their specific needs and values.
It's almost like creating a targeted marketing campaign for yourself, highlighting how your unique skills and experiences align with what they're looking for.
That's a great analogy. You need to showcase your unique value proposition and tell a compelling story about how you can contribute to their success.
Okay, customization is key. Got it. But even with a perfectly tailored resume, how can we even be sure that a real human is even going to see it?
You're hitting on a major pain point: the fear of getting lost in the AI abyss. HR consultant Brian Driscoll actually called this a failure of the system, arguing that many companies have become too reliant on automation, often filtering out qualified candidates before a human ever glances at their application.
So what's the solution? Is there a way to make sure our resumes actually get past those robot gatekeepers and into the hands of actual decision makers?
There's no magic bullet, but there are definitely strategies you can use. One is to make sure your resume is formatted in a way that's easy for both humans and AI to read.
So that means no fancy fonts or elaborate designs, back to basics.
Exactly. Keep it clean, straightforward, easy to scan. Also pay close attention to the keywords and phrases used in the job description. These are often the same terms the AI is programmed to look for.
So we're speaking robot a little bit, making sure our resumes include the right buzzwords, but shouldn't we also be highlighting our authentic skills and experiences?
Absolutely. Authenticity is crucial. Don't just stuff your resume with keywords that don't genuinely reflect your abilities. Remember, the goal is to get your resume in front of a human, and they'll be able to see through any inauthenticity.
Okay, that makes sense. So we've talked about tailoring our applications and optimizing them for AI, but one of the sources, Alex Beeney, who teaches financial literacy, he argued that a lot of job seekers make a big mistake. Early on, they spend hours agonizing over the perfect resume, but neglect a crucial step.
You're talking about researching the company itself, right? Alex emphasized that it's not enough to simply tailor your application to the job description. You need to understand the company's culture, values, and overall mission.
And that takes more than just skimming their website, right? You need to do some real digging. Read articles, check out their social media, even talk to people who work there if you can.
Precisely, this kind of in-depth research can give you a huge advantage. It allows you to connect your skills and experiences to the company's specific needs and goals, making you a much more compelling candidate.
It also shows that you're genuinely interested in the company, which always makes a good impression.
Right, it demonstrates initiative and a willingness to go the extra mile. But here's the thing, even with the rise of AI, we can't forget about the importance of human connection.
Because sometimes it's not just what you know, but who you know, right?
Exactly, and that's where networking comes in. Guy Berger, one of the economists you included in the sources, has some great advice on this front. He believes that in this increasingly digital world, networking is more important than ever.
I can see how networking might feel intimidating, especially with so much of our communication happening online these days.
It definitely requires a shift in mindset, but it's about building genuine relationships, not just collecting contacts.
So, how do we actually make those connections in a meaningful way? Do we need to be attending every industry event or spamming people on LinkedIn?
It's not about being a social butterfly or a master networker. It's about leveraging the connections you already have. Former colleagues, classmates, even friends of friends.
It's about reaching out to people, having conversations, and sharing your story.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
sometimes a simple coffee chat or informational interview can lead to an unexpected opportunity.
So, even though it feels like everything is moving online, human connection still matters.
More than ever, it's what sets us apart from the algorithms and reminds employers that we're not just data points on a resume, we're real people with passions, experiences, and a desire to contribute.
I love that. Okay, just we've covered upskilling, tailoring applications, optimizing for AI, researching companies, and networking. Is there anything else job seekers should be focusing on in this wild new world of work?
There is, and it ties back to something Kevin Thompson, a finance expert, talked about the power of a portfolio.
Right. He made a really compelling case for showcasing your skills with tangible examples.
It's one thing to say you're a great writer or a talented graphic designer, but it's a whole other level to show potential employers what you can do.
Because actions speak louder than words. And a portfolio is basically proof of concept. It's like saying, here's what I've accomplished, here's how I think, and here's a taste of what I can bring to your team.
Exactly, and it doesn't have to be limited to creative fields. Even if you work in finance or engineering, there are ways to demonstrate your skills and problem-solving abilities through case studies, projects, or even volunteer work.
So it's about thinking outside the traditional resume and finding ways to bring your skills to life. But, with all this talk about crafting the perfect application and building a killer portfolio, I can't help but wonder what happens if we do all the right things and still nothing. What if we just keep hitting that wall of silence?
That's a valid concern, and it's unfortunately something that many job seekers are experiencing right now.
Yeah.
We talked earlier about the frustration of ghost jobs, but even legitimate job postings can lead to radio silence.
It's demoralizing. You put all this time and effort into an application only to be met with nothing.
Right. And it's easy to start internalizing that rejection, wondering if you're not good enough or if you're doing something wrong.
But before we spiral down that rabbit hole, I think it's important to remember that even in this competitive market, there are things we can control and there are strategies we can use to increase our chances of success.
Exactly. And that's what we'll explore next. We'll talk about how to stay resilient in the face of rejection, how to cultivate a growth mindset, and how to stay motivated even when the job search feels like an uphill battle.
Because let's face it, finding a job in 2025 requires more than just skills and experience. It requires grit, determination, and a healthy dose of self-belief.
And that's something we can all work on regardless of our industry or experience level.
So stay tuned, folks. We're about to equip you with the tools and strategies you need to not just survive, but thrive in this ever-evolving job market. Okay, so we've explored, the shifting landscape of the 2025 job market, the skills gap, the rise of AI, and some really practical strategies for, tailoring your applications and optimizing for those AI screening tools, and even building a portfolio that showcases your unique talents.
We even touched on the importance of networking and building genuine relationships, even in a world that's increasingly reliant on digital communication.
But with all this talk about competition and ghost jobs, it's easy to feel overwhelmed and even a little bit well scared.
Absolutely. It's a tough market out there. And even with the best preparation, rejection is inevitable. So what can job seekers do to stay motivated when faced with those setbacks and that silence?
Right. Well, several of the experts you gave us emphasized the importance of resilience. Brian Driscoll even called it the secret weapon of successful job seekers.
And it's not just about, bouncing back from rejection. It's about reframing how we view rejection in the first place. Instead of seeing it as a personal failure, what if we saw it as an opportunity for growth and learning?
Okay, so how do we actually shift our perspective?
Yeah.
It's so easy to get caught in that spiral of self-doubt when you're sending out applications and just hearing crickets.
It's definitely a challenge. One strategy is to focus on the things you can control. You can't force a company to respond to your application, but you can continually improve your skills. You can tailor your resume to perfection, expand your network, and build a portfolio that truly shines.
So it's about taking ownership of your job search journey and remembering that every no gets you closer to that eventual yes.
Exactly. And even if you don't hear back from a specific company, the act of applying is still valuable. It helps you clarify your goals, refine your pitch, and get better at articulating your value proposition.
So even those silent rejections are actually micro lessons in disguise.
That's a great way to put it. Another important aspect of resilience is celebrating those small wins along the way. Did you finally finish updating your resume? Did you connect with someone new in your field? Did you get a positive response to an application? Acknowledge those achievements no matter how small they may seem.
It's so easy to get caught up in the destination that we forget to actually enjoy the journey. But those small wins are like fuel for the fire. They keep us motivated and remind us that we're making progress.
And remember, the job search process is just one chapter in your career story.
Yeah.
It doesn't define your worth or your potential.
Right. And speaking of defining your worth, I think it's important to talk about something that's often overlooked in the job search self-care.
Oh, that's crucial.
Yeah.
It's so easy to get consumed by the job search that we neglect our physical and mental well-being. But if we're not taking care of ourselves, it's much harder to stay resilient and positive.
So what does self-care actually look like in the context of a job search? Is it bubble baths and meditation apps, or is it something more?
It can definitely include those things, but it's also about setting healthy boundaries, knowing when to take a break, and allowing yourself time to recharge.
Because searching for a job is, in many ways, a job in itself. It can be draining and emotionally taxing.
Exactly. So make sure you're scheduling time for activities that bring you joy, whether it's spending time with loved ones, pursuing a hobby, or simply taking a walk in nature.
It's about remembering that you're a whole person, not just a resume or a LinkedIn profile.
Right. And when you prioritize your well-being, you show up as a more confident and authentic version of yourself, which can make a huge difference in your interactions with potential employers.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the 2025 job market, what's the key takeaway you want listeners to remember?
I think the most important takeaway is that while the job market is undoubtedly challenging, it's also a time of incredible opportunity. The skills and strategies we've discussed today are not just about finding a job in this market, they're about building a career that's fulfilling, adaptable, and resilient in the face of any future changes.
And it's about remembering that we're not just reacting to the job market, we have the power to shape it.
Exactly. As you navigate this landscape, ask yourself, what skills do you want to develop? What values do you want to prioritize? What kind of work-life balance do you desire?
Because when you're clear about your own needs and aspirations, you're much better equipped to navigate the twists and turns of the job market and find a path that truly aligns with your goals.
Absolutely. And remember, you're not alone in this journey. There are resources, communities, and mentors out there ready to support you every step of the way.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, from the challenges to the strategies and the importance of resilience and self-care. I have a feeling our listeners are walking away with a lot to think about.
And hopefully a renewed sense of hope and determination, because despite the challenges, there are ways to navigate this landscape successfully.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the 2025 job market. We wish you all the best in your job search journey.
Good luck out there.